Great to see so many familiar faces here today, so many new faces, and a special warm welcome to so many customers that we have in the room, as well as our suppliers. It's also terrific to once again be partnering with the Australian High Commission to bring you Vogue Codes. Now, looking around the room, many of you will know the Vogue brand, the Vogue Powerhouse brand, Anna Wintour, Met Gala. But some of you might not know what Vogue Codes is all about. So Westpac's been partnering with Vogue magazine to bring events across capital cities in Australia, Vogue Codes, to empower future female innovation, inspire talent into the tech industry. The event sell out last year, and last year's event had one of my favourite speakers, the Honourable Julie Bishop, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. Today we've got an equally inspiring event here with us in Singapore, and live from Sydney, which you might have seen on the screen before. We've got 3 fantastic speakers, 2 around entrepreneurship and innovation, and 1 around AI as well. So I'm now going to, that's it for me. I'm now going to hand over to our CEO for Asia Pacific, Michael Correa, who's a very passionate advocate of women in leadership, women in technology, and women into STEM. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Ange. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for coming today. I know we generally don't do champagne brunches, do we, Ange? Just want to pass through the governance process. But thank you everybody for coming here today, and I think it's a great event to be part of, and it's a bit of a, let's call it a bit of a risky event. We're simulcasting into Sydney here in Singapore, and it's the only place in the world we're doing this. I think Westpac, and as a part of Westpac, we're very proud of our involvement in events like Vogue Codes, and I think this, the whole concept, what we're trying to, I guess, work on in terms of STEM, the concepts of really promoting women in different fields of industry, whether it be STEM or others, which traditionally women haven't had the opportunity with, is something that we're very passionate and very keen to explore and to promote. As a personal note, I'm a father of 2 girls. I had a great experience. I know the Microsoft team are here, but my then 11-year-old daughter came to work with me one day, and we went to the Microsoft Innovation Centre, and we had a great experience there. And I brought my 11-year-old with me, and they said, "Great, you've brought your daughter to work with you. We've gone to the Microsoft the Innovation Centre." And they said, "Well, why doesn't she come along and do some coding classes with us? Why doesn't she come along and be part of some of our initiatives?" And that really inspired us. I think as an organisation, there's a few of us who went to that visit, and how do we do more for, let's call it the ecosystems that we want to be part of. And that was really the start of the inspiration of us building this facility here in Singapore, the CoLab that we have today. And whilst you can see here is a event space, we do a lot of our proof of concept work here, we do a lot of our development work here. On the other side of that wall, we have the incubator centre where we can have fintechs come in, or regtech, or any sort of development work that wants to come in. We focus on Australian businesses, so we actively promote businesses and fintechs and companies in Australia to come to ASEAN, to come to Singapore as a centre, as a hub, and this facility is what we use to do that. So I'm really proud that in 3 weeks' time we're going to open our 4th CoLab in Shanghai, and we're going to experience, hopefully, a similar sort of event that we do here into Shanghai as well. So I think it's enough for me. Again, a big welcome. Please enjoy the drinks, enjoy the food, enjoy the conversation. I'm really looking forward to hearing from everybody speak today, and it should be a great event, so thanks very much.
Thanks, Michael. So I'll now ask our 2 speakers of today to come on stage, please. Our first panel today is around founding a global tech company from your spare room, and we've got 2 amazing speakers to share with us how they did it. Anna's, I know, has just flown in from Hong Kong, so thanks very much for joining us. And Debra, you've just flown in from Tokyo, although you're based out of Australia, so thank you for joining us as well. So a short introduction on them both. Anna Gong is the CEO and founder of Perx Technologies. So it's a digital loyalty payments supplier, and it has founders, amongst others, the co-founder of Facebook, Eduardo Saverin. Anna was also the 2017 Female Tech Entrepreneur of the Year. So we're in great company today, having Anna. Debra, who I've just had the pleasure of meeting over the last 2 months, is a non-executive director of Stone & Chalk. Stone & Chalk is Australia's largest fintech hub, with hubs in Melbourne and Sydney, and they support over around the fintech community in Australia, which is 750 fintechs currently, and rapidly expanding as they try to challenge us banks. Debra is also the COO and founder of a company called Sparkz, who's doing a lot of work in the region here, together with MasterCard and Visa, as well as in other Southeast Asian nations, including the Philippines, as well as Japan. So fantastic to have you both here. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Debra, who's going to run our interview panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, great to be here. As Angela said, I just flew in from Tokyo, so we're looking at the Asian market here for card-linked offers. It's what my business does. So we use the payment methodologies to identify transactions to provide rewards and loyalty. So card-linked offers is a term that you'll hear quite a lot from now on. But I've been chatting with Anna here this morning, and it's been great to find out about her journey. And I want to actually explore a few of the things that we have talked about this morning so far. So, Anna, I was really keen to find out how you got involved in tech. So can you tell us a bit more about, so what was the inspiration that got you involved in tech companies? Because you've had 12 years in Silicon Valley, and now you've been here for about 5 years.
It was an accident. I met a boy. I was in Florida, and I met him. He was 19 years old, graduated from Stanford. I'm like, Stanford High School? He's like, no, Stanford University. So I moved over to California. I went to UCLA and stayed in California. Been in Silicon Valley since I graduated, and then you just constantly immerse into this whole deep tech space. I've never known anything other than deep tech. So my first job was coding. Implementing large-scale applications and whatnot in Folsom, California. Johnny Cash. So we actually have been, this is my 5th startup experience, and it's been a very, very tough but yet rewarding journey. I'm a risk taker, a serial risk taker, so I probably won't stop here, but this is something that I really love. I love impacting, disrupting, working with very innovative solutions, and then also making an impact in the world.
Wow, so your background is actually in coding as well. Oh, that's fantastic. So I know that's not a common thing, especially when you started, 20-odd years ago in Silicon Valley. Like, women in coding is not something that we have been as familiar with. So how was it to be as a tech coder as a woman in Silicon Valley? What was that like?
Back then it was miserable because if you think about how we developed technology in the yesteryears compared to today, I wish I was a developer today, because it's so much more fun, it's sexy, it's very user-driven. And before, it's monolithic, it's old, and it's just on-prem. Now, if you talk about on-prem solutions, I want to tell people to go F off, right? But it's all about microservices, the cutting-edge technology, cloud solutions, and it's just so disruptive, fast time to market and so forth. So a lot of this evolution that we've been in, you just have to kind of be agile as a person. I never really thought about staying in tech for a long time, but every time I think about leaving, I come back into it because we evolve around tech every day, and so I very much enjoy it.
So being so involved in tech, how involved are you in that now? Because being CEO of a company with 40 staff, you've got a spread around of businesses around Asia. How involved can you be with the tech now?
Well, my director of product management is here, so she would tell you how involved I am. If I'm micromanaging too much, and you're in trouble. But I do love products. Having the vision and seeing how it's executed and developed. I still get involved with it. I walk over to my engineers all the time, asking them for different ways to architect the solution. Looking at things differently, giving them innovative ideas, and so. If I'm not touching the product or as part of the development cycle, I don't feel like I'm part of this company. So oftentimes you just have to get entrenched into it. But I'm in the field now probably about 60-70% of the time selling.
Yeah. What's been the transition like? Because your background is Chinese American, and you were born in China and then spent time in Florida. What has been the transition like coming from the US back into Asia and living in Singapore? What's that been like culturally and gender issues, etc.?
It's building a SaaS company is actually in itself a big challenge. The SaaS community in Asia is very nascent, very immature, unsophisticated. Oftentimes you see large enterprises adopting Western companies' technologies and not local technologies. And so there's a stigma around that. And so most of the unicorns or SaaS successful companies out of India have been developed out of Silicon Valley. They made their successes in North America. They came back and then made big noises around their success. But it's a very, very nascent market. Even the investor community is very immature and unsophisticated. It's a very B2C market in this area. And so right now, I think because B2C is saturated, the investors are moving into more sustainable, profitable business models, and B2B is actually very attractive. So we're one of the first few batches in Asia that is looking at or actually launching this enterprise SaaS business. We, instead of going bottoms up to SME or B2C SaaS, we actually went large scale, large enterprises first, and we're now going to go downstream on a different business model as well. So we'll serve a global community of, we're a marketing automation solution, so we'll be hitting the global community.
So you have done some cap raising out here as well. What's that been like, being a female-led company in an environment where they're not used to a SaaS product? So how's that been? What's the process been? Where'd the money come from mostly?
You mean customers investing in us, or?
No. Raising money.
Oh yeah. So I've been turned down so many times, and it's not even funny because you get so discouraged with the VCs are. I can't say too much about the VCs. They're my friends and they're sometimes, my foes. But I think in Asia, there's so much money. If you have an idea, it will be funded. If you are bold enough and you're a risk taker, it will be funded. But ask yourself, do you want to be an entrepreneur? Because the journey thereafter, raising money is the easy part, actually. It's the journey thereafter that is the toughest. You raise $1 million, but making $1 million and $1 is actually very, very tough, right? So I think for the Asia market, because family offices and private investors are so eager to invest in new ideas, and we're in the era right now for risk takers. And if you have great ideas, and I promote females in this room to take some chances, not to take employees out of Westpac, but take some chances and be bold and go out there and seek some new opportunities.
So when you say you've got a lot of knockbacks, who are the types of groups that have invested in this company now?
So I raised already about $11.1 million since I've joined. My situation is very different because I was hired in to run a B2C loyalty app. And I think most of you in Singapore know about the Perx app. I've sunset that business. The co-founders of the original business is also not there anymore. So when I pivoted, I actually had to raise a down round. And raising a down round, that means you're not at the same valuation, you're at the lower valuation. And we had to refresh and restart and refound the business. And with a single founder, with no original ideas anymore, and now we've gone to the enterprise. And so Eduardo Savran actually repeated the investment. He led the last round with Line Ventures. Access Ventures, and a few other big investors, and Golden Gate Ventures as well.
So what's the long-term future for you and Perx? Are you looking at staying in the market, building it? Are you looking at an exit at some point? And do you, like, because you have done a few startups already, so do you like to actually build a business and then look at an exit and then look around for other ideas of what you might do?
As much as the unicorns are actually creating a lot of noise, there's not enough successful exits out here in Asia to actually be aspirational about. So actually exiting at 100, 200, 300 million is a very successful exit within 6 years. And so there has to be a first batch of these exits, and we're going to be one of them. And you're going to see a few more of these exits in this B2B space. And I think once you see that, there will be a lot more investors coming because they're going to create the next fund to seed into the next generation of SaaS companies. But because there's no successful SaaS exits here, there is no benchmark. But in the Valley, there's tons, or Western markets, there's tons of SaaS companies. Actually, MarTech is one of the hottest sectors in North America right now. VCs are investing in MarTech left and right, and you know that, right? And you're in the same field. And so for us, moving to the next stage is naturally an exit, and I think we need to see more of these.
Great. What about when you do exit? How do you come up with ideas, or there's a lot of tech. It's a tech-focused world right now. So how do you get an idea and how do you develop an idea? I'm just wanting to get some support for the people here who might be looking at doing a tech business. What advice would you give them to find an idea, develop an idea? How they get co-founders in? How they get funding in?
So when I've only known deep tech. That's why I'm not in the B2C space. I only understand how to solve pain points that you experience as a consumer or as a personal journey. The reason why I started this business and focus on enterprise is when you think about traditional service providers such as banking, telcos, insurance, and whatnot, none of us have been actually relevantly and engaged and delighted proactively by our service providers. The whole model is broken. Right, so if you think, I've been with one telco for 10 years or so, and I have never been engaged proactively, but when I leave, a rep would call you and say, I'm from the loyalty division. That's flawed, right? So why are you engaging with me? I've given you a lifetime value of almost $100,000, and this is the first call that you're actually giving me? And then my head of, my ex-colleague, he's been with one telco for 20 years, never been called on, and got called on once when he left to move to one of our customers that we signed. And again, she said, I'm from the loyalty division. What loyalty is there when you only call your customers once in 20 years? So that journey caught my eye. I said, there's a broken model. We gotta fix enterprise businesses on how to actually serve customers.
Like that when you came out here, there was a business model in place with the original founders, but being a B2C, it's a very difficult model to build, especially, you do need a lot of funding behind you to do a B2C. So what was the process of pivoting? How did you pivot from a B2C to the B2B and the SaaS product that you now have? What was the process you went through?
So the B2C market is very, very tough unless you get $1 billion in funding and you got a lot of play money. For us, when I looked at the business when I came in the first 6 months, it was a very different business when when you look at it from the outside in. It's not a sustainable business. It's not scalable cross borders. You go to every country in Asia, there's a different language, different currency, different religion, so different purchasing behavior, different products. And so how do you scale a loyalty across the globe with one seamless model? It doesn't work that way. So for me, it was just looking at serving a community of closed loop network. If a bank has millions of customers that they've acquired for for many years, why don't we help them cross-sell, upsell, and engage the customers and appreciate their existing base of customers rather than spending on useless ad tech. 80% of the budget has gone to acquisition and Google and Facebook and all that, but it's unquantifiable revenue streams. 1 million likes does not get you anything. Brand awareness, is that your KPI? I mean, today, who cares about brands anymore?
talked about the different countries that you're in now. How do you go into a new country with the different cultures, the different currencies, the different value for the products as well? How do you first go in and what process do you go through to actually identify how you're going to work, how your company will work in that culture best?
Because we sell to the enterprise, it's very high touch. So most of the meetings that we have are very C-level driven. And so the buying behavior, the decision makers, you fast track the discussion. And everybody in the C-suite is talking about revenue. And so, but in our sector, you know, when we talk about selling SaaS and cloud technology, we seldom work with CIOs. And when CIOs start to make that decision, I mentioned before to you, it's the death of the company because they want all on-prem solutions. They will talk themselves out of actually investing in cloud solutions. And that's why you talk to the CEO, CCO, or the CMO, or the CDO, but not the CIO. And I'm not here to offend any CIOs in this room, but CIOs love on-prem solutions. They have all this risk and governance, but yet, you know, your competitors out there are transacting trillions and trillions of dollars on 100% cloud mobile-first technology, and yet you're arguing about on-prem. Okay, whatever.
Okay, we've got some great people in the audience today. So what I'd like to do is open it up for questions from the audience. You know, we're here to talk about what you want to know about. So I'm keen to hear from you. What questions you have for Anna? Is there a mic?
Hi, Anna. My name's Wendy. Great insights. Thanks for sharing. Tell us a bit more about the loyalty, like when you work with a corporation and an enterprise. Obviously, understanding who their customer is core to being a successful business in today's digital environment. How do you work with them to help them structure their data to understand their customer better and then be able to deliver their loyalty and engagement strategies?
So data is actually a very hot topic. AI is a very hot topic. We focus on marketing automation and phase one. Let's think about Asia first, right? It's not a mature market. That's why it's so much fun working in Asia and selling to the Asian customers because they're bolder. They think less about that governance and whatnot. Although that is actually part of their biggest KPIs, they have to think about data protection and governance and risks. But when we look at this market, they actually are hungry. They want to be the first mover. They're playing the leader position. They're not a follower. And a lot of the customers that we're working with, you know, they are so bold in their decision making. It's fail fast, fail cheap. Truly, some of the large enterprises that we're working, we close a 7-figure deal within 5 months. Right? We close another one within 3 months. And so the fast pace of adoption in technology is amazing if you go to the C level. If you talk about relevant discussions around what's their core strategy in digital transformation, what is their biggest pillars that they're focusing on, read their annual reports. If you're walking in and you understand exactly what their core strategy is, you're helping them fix. It's all about moving the needles. You know, is this strategy going to help them move the needle? If one campaign, they're trying to do one campaign, they're talking to the wrong people, right? And so that's a very tactical mindset, and marketers don't know what they don't know what they don't know. And so it's a lot of awareness, a lot of, the sophistication of data usage here is not that high. It's not like the Western markets. So it's not a lot of self-serving. So that's why AI platforms are not doing very well here. So we focus on a lot of automation and unification of manual complex processes. So automation is still a very big focus in Asia. AI is a sexy topic, but it's not well adopted outside of robotics.
You talked then about fail fast. What is the attitude of failure up here generally? Is it okay to have a failure? I mean, I've had a few myself over the years, and I think we talked about that earlier as well. But what's the attitude here?
They're very afraid to fail. It's not in the culture. Never embrace failure. Never, I love failing. I've talked about made so many mistakes at Perx, even just this company alone. In the last few years, I hire incorrectly. I spoke out of line. I managed incorrectly. I mean, there's so many things I've done wrongly. And you just have to talk about it because people want to hear about the challenges and the problems, and how you solve them, not about the successes. You can read about the success. There's no single recipe, but I want to know how you solve these critical problems. And so for us, I'm Chinese, right? I was born Chinese. Never talk about your failures. Never look vulnerable. I go to Silicon Valley. Manage by compassion. Be empathetic. You know, everything that I was taught not to do. So I'm kind of like in this phase where, you know, neither here or there, but you have to embrace failure. And my dad's finally actually understanding what that means. He's like, compassion? What are you talking about? You know, never let people see you sweat. So this is the thinking of Asian mentality. So I think we're evolving, and the next generation, the Gen Zs and the younger millennials, will actually be the drivers of that because they think differently, they think with purpose, they act with purpose rather than based on monetary values.
Great. Okay, any other questions from the audience?
You have a roving mic now, sorry. Okay.
Hi, Ella and Deborah. Thank you so much for the sharing so far. My name is Sabrina Ho. I'm the founder and CEO of Half the Sky, a career platform for women. So as an entrepreneur myself, I have experienced high and lows within a day. So the high is really high, the low is really low. And Anna, can you share with us some of the lowest point of your life and how did you overcome it and how did you excel from it?
So as a female, so during the toughest part was when we were running out of money. I had to loan the company a couple $100,000 to make payroll and not let the employees know that there's no money in the bank. And at the same time, going through a divorce. So we don't talk about these things because, you know, we seem very resilient, and from the outside looking in, oh my gosh, she's doing it all, you know. Oh my God, I was like, you know, going home so depressed. And so, you know, and then dealing with crazy investors. I invested a very different pool, and I did not invite these investors in. I inherited some of those investors. So dealing with disruptive investors, high maintenance investors, dealing with a failed business model, trying to pivot, running out of money, cannot raise money, having to pitch to 50 VCs and getting rejected all the time, and going through a divorce. It was a nasty time. It was 2 years ago. And so now that, you know, we've gone through a lot of those, you just have to, you know, deal with it with a brave face. I think grit and resilience helps a lot. And, you know, I'm a Chinese immigrant from the US, so I've done a lot of that. I have dealt with a lot of discrimination, a lot of, you know, issues with having to assimilate. So I feel like we're constantly assimilating as entrepreneurs, trying to deal with, you know, these challenges. And so you just go through it. And if you have the right circle of friends and mentors and advisors, it helps a lot.
I think for me, the low point in my life and career was really close to 20 years ago when my 2-year-old daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. And I was running my own business. And I remember, you know, lawyers would come to the hospital room to have me sign documents. So that was certainly a very challenging time for me. And I found that what enabled me to keep going was to always have a vision and a view of what I wanted my future to be like. So rather than getting involved in the grief and trauma that I went through personally, that was part of it. But also I just kept my vision. And I still keep my vision. Whenever I'm going through a low patch, and I do, I've had business failures, I've had shareholders knocking on the door wanting to know what's happened to the business, I've had to pivot, I've had to do a lot myself. So it's certainly something that we don't talk about a lot, our stories, and that's why I love getting involved with women in this space, because we do and we are freer to talk about our life stories and what impacts our personal journeys have with us in our business careers. Any other stories to tell here?
Maybe just a quick filler. What is it like when you think about an idea and you think it's great and then you take it to your mentors or your colleagues and say, guys, this is something we should think about, and then they give you feedback that you weren't expecting. What's that process like, and how often do you have to go through it before you find something that works?
So we ideate all the time, and I want, this whole culture of, break things. You empower your employees to actually think out of the box and go and break things. They don't get what that means. They always ask for permission. Our style and where I grew up and my career was, ask for permission later. So what happens is that we work collaboratively. I have so many different ideas. I would throw it over the fence to my tech team, my product management team, and even my executive leaders, and ask them to vet this idea out, because I want them to challenge me. My idea is not perfect. It's going to be very flawed, but it could be bold. And then tell me whether it's sustainable, it's monetizable, and whether we can actually, take it to market. And so they would do the legwork of all the investigation after a while, but I myself are keeping, I'm keeping the pulse, in the market. And so I'm like an ID crazy person. My PM knows exactly how many ideas I throw out there. Yeah, we are a very collaborative organization.
I'd love to get some other questions. We're here to really talk with you. So what questions, what comments do you have to bring into the group?
Ladies, for a lovely discussion so far. To help the other people in the room who run startups, for example, and you mentioned being able to go in front of lots of CEOs rather than CIOs or people lower down. What are some of the strategies that you took to actually get yourself in front of that CEO's level of people? Because quite often, I'm sure they get knocked on the door all the time. And unless you're someone who's reputable and known in the market, chances are the doors will be slammed in your face without even opening in the first place. So what are some of the things that you found to be very helpful?
I think for startups is one of the best things working for a startup. You get away with murder. You don't come in with 50 people like IBM, 20 people. You don't have the luxury. You walk in one, you and your, CTO or your pre-sales guy, and you literally have a very different discussion with them because they're looking for disruptive, creative thinkers that would help them generate more revenue and move faster. The IBMs and the Oracles and all the big, solutions, and no offense to them because they're still doing very, very well, but they are the ones who are a commodity, right? If you sound like a commodity and you walk in and speak like a commodity, like a Me Too solution, they're not gonna listen to you. But if you sound different, you're gonna help them with their strategy, you're gonna help them competitively and transform quickly. Because most C-levels have a 2 or 3 year roadmap, and they're now measured so tightly. If you ask a CEO, how are you compensated? Are you actually bold enough to ask the CEO, what's your KPI? And is this core strategy actually aligned to what you're doing today? And if they cannot answer that, or if they like to, they don't have vendors that talk to them like this. Only the CEO of IBM would have that discussion with some other C-level. Why? Why can't us, normal people, ask the same questions, right? And then you bring the technology there to help solve these mission-critical issues, and that moves the needle for them. Not another Me Too discussion. How can I help you? No, let me tell you how I can help you, not the other way around.
Hi, I run a women's focused marketing innovation agency. Given you both are women and run businesses, what are you actually doing to help other women specifically, like mentorship, coaching for pitches and things like that? What are you both doing to give back?
Well, being a director of Stone & Chalk in Sydney, the startup hub there, I'm very involved in the women's network in fintech. I'm involved in women in payments. So I'm always love speaking at events like this where I'm speaking to women. But I also acknowledge the men in the room too, because we need to work collectively with men and women to actually bring a focus more of women in fintech, in tech. I think there is a good focus on that now. There's a number of awards that are now being given to female fintech leaders, etc. So I think this does give a really good focus of bringing women into this space more. And I've done dozen startups over 25 years. And quite honestly, being a startup person is the best thing because you get to control your own destiny. You get to work the hours you want, you can raise a family, you can build your business in the time frame that works for you. So I love being a startup person, and I want to support as many women as I can to also take this path.
There's so many women in tech, women organizations, and I think this region is actually more supportive than any other region I've seen. Not just lean in and not these, type of inherited chapters, but there's so many organic grassroots organizations out here that really genuinely want to serve the community and actually give back. There is a homegrown female organization that gives out Women Entrepreneur Awards and so forth. They're looking for like really bootstrap SMEs to growth stage, very high level, very successful C-level female leaders. And they were trying to promote Singaporean born and bred companies here, so you don't have to be a Westerner or a Singaporean. They reward and they promote and they help all different SMEs, women-led companies. And so there's so many but within the mentor program, there's very few female leaders that are out there as role models, unfortunately. I don't know many females in tech that are actually shaping the world, and even just this region. It's different to say, I don't even have one female role model that I look up to in this region that's a tech leader. And we need to actually solve that. It's a dire situation.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Anna, Debra, thank you for this morning. My name's Alexis. I'm from IBM. It's okay. I thought I should say that. I've run a technology business before, and this is more of a personal-led and more to the perseverance side of the panel discussion. But how successful are you at managing your own energy and making sure that you avoid burnout? It's something that I struggled with, so I'd love to know your tips.
I meditate a lot. I think that helped me through my toughest times. I practice that a lot too. I've been taught by really successful founders to pause, right? You cannot react. There's fires burning all the time. How are you gonna prioritize and not react to every single firefight? And react in a way that is actually calculated, it's actually meaningful, and it's rational. It's hard because you're constantly, and you want to touch everything. You want to get things done immediately. And then the other is exercise a lot. It's my form of also another physical meditation. I do a lot of exercising, and then just get with I have a founders network in Southeast Asia and a female network and another entrepreneur network, 3 networks that I belong to, where we have forums that you sit, it's your own little private boardroom. It's like EO and YPO, right? Similar to that. And you literally talk about the toughest stuff that you would never talk about to your own colleagues or employees or friends. It is your own private network that you solve each other's problems. And we have very similar issues. How do you fire a co-founder? How do you get out of debt? How do you raise money? How do you actually manage the board? How do you do? There's so many things that you can talk about that typically people don't share in the open space.
Yes, I think networks are just the best resource that I have to maintain my sanity at times. And but I agree with everything Anna said, exercise, diet, and make sure you have some time out. When I get home from an overseas trip, I have an overnighter flight generally, and I get home tired. I just chill out for, the next day or so and recharge. Thank you. We might have time for one more quick one. Yes, over here at the front. Nice to have the men here.
It's good to be here. I'm Jack. I'm a lawyer here in Singapore. My question relates to something you were talking about earlier, Anna, which was about that kind of opposition that you see from CIOs to SaaS and cloud-based solutions. And it seems to me to tie into a kind of bigger thing about trying to move large organizations to new technologies and new ways of doing things. So I'd be interested to hear from you more about, what exactly do you see as creating that opposition to adopting new ways of doing things from various people within organizations that you're trying to onboard. So I'm particularly thinking, are they concerned about data protection? Are they concerned about what the regulator might think if they're, regulated institution and the regulator's a dinosaur, or is it just laziness or inertia?
Never talk about laziness, but there is corporate willful blindness everywhere. It's who's on top, who is actually going on retirement soon, who does not want to rock the boat. I used to be much of a maverick, and I served about 10 to 12 years in MNCs. And let me tell you, it was painful going through disruptive technology, even working for a tech company, And so for us to go through a transformation, because I work for one of the biggest transformational companies, because our C-level actually got jailed. They went to prison, right? And so think about transforming in a company like that. And so if you're talking about, pivoting, transforming, every company's going through that. There's no one great recipe, but it has to be a cultural transformation first and foremost, and leadership transformation. It cannot be a bottoms up because there's so much politics going on. If you're leaders, one example, one of the largest banks in the world, their new CEO actually mandated all of their C-levels and all of the senior executives to take UX courses, design thinking courses, learn how customers, think about their technology and services. And so everyone went through a 1-week course. They have to understand what UX and UI actually feels and think and develop, and how it's serving their customers. And if they cannot have a semi-tech discussion, then they're removed from the leadership team. So these are some of the things that are going through, and there is no one right recipe, but it's the conservative mindset and the brutal death of the corporate willful blindness that's actually killing most large organizations. I'm actually giving a talk next week at TechSauce in Thailand just about this topic, actually.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for, because we are going crossover to Sydney for a live video stream there. So thank you all for coming this evening, and thanks, Anna, for our chat. I've really enjoyed meeting you today. And I'll be around here. I'm sure you will be as well after the event. And I'd love to meet as many of you as possible, and please come up to both of us and share your stories, and look forward to meeting more of you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Anna and Deborah, for an insightful talk. What I learnt and took out away from that was very much around failing fast, being brave, taking risks, and perseverance. So thanks very much. Since that, we're now going to shift gears a little bit from taking risks to thinking a little bit more about the world of the future. Something that I came across recently was, with all of this move to global technology, 75% of the jobs in the future that will be displaced belong to women. So as a mother of daughters, I feel quite compelled to be here today and be bringing this conversation to the fore, and it's fantastic that so many people are here to listen today. Our next speaker is Diana Bettler. Well, great to welcome you back into the CoLab, Diana. Diana has had an amazing career. She's worked for quite some time with the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation around the very topic around ethics and AI. She's also now at Microsoft as Philanthropies Director for Microsoft Asia Pacific, working for their team. But before Diana comes on board, she's going to share with us a short video.
today, right now, you have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. Think about that. That's what technology really is. It's possibility, it's adaptability, it's capability. But in the end, it's only a tool. What's a hammer without a person who swings it? It's not about what technology can do, it's about what you can do with it. You're the voice, and it's the microphone. When you're the artist, it's the paintbrush. We are living in the future we always dreamed of. We have mixed reality that changes how we see the world, and AI empowering us to change the world we see. You have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. So here's the question, what will you do with it?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Diana Beitler, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today to talk about why Microsoft believes that artificial intelligence can enable us to achieve our mission of empowering every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And to have a discussion not just about the enormous opportunity that come with these technologies, but also the sense of responsibility that we feel because of the changes that it will create. And the question ultimately is not just what computers can do, but what they should do. In a way, artificial intelligence is not necessarily new. And for those of you without a technical background, let me tell you what it actually fundamentally is. Computers have long been able to see and hear, but it is now their ability to understand what it is that they see and hear that actually makes the difference. Computers can now learn a language and translate, can identify patterns and make predictions. It is this ability to understand this cognition that is fundamentally different from anything else that we've done with technology until now. And it has promised to impact every single sector, from education, healthcare, manufacturing, to even agriculture. An example that we like to talk about is a project we call FarmBeats, where we're providing artificial intelligence to farmers, and while they increase agricultural yield and lower cost, they are also reducing the environmental impact of farming. And this is just a hint of the unprecedented opportunities that could come with artificial intelligence. But the question, as I said, is how do we take responsibility for the future that lies ahead of us? And our vision at Microsoft is to use artificial intelligence to amplify and augment human ingenuity rather than displace it. And in a way, this has been part of our company since we were founded. 40 years ago, when Bill Gates and Paul Allen funded Microsoft, their vision was to put a PC in every desk. And today, we're doing the same with artificial intelligence. But the question, as I said, is not just what computers can do. It's fundamentally what they should do. And the answer to this question is something that we need to arrive at collectively, that it cannot be left to technology companies alone. And there are some really tough conversations that we face in the technology sector, but pretty much across any industry, because we know that in the future, every single company will be a software company. And these three questions are around economic opportunity. What is the impact that artificial intelligence is going to have in the workforce? The second one is on society. How can we ensure that artificial intelligence does not increase inequality even further? And then finally, how do we create technology that can be underpinned with a foundation of trust? Let me start with the elephant in the room, which is economic opportunity. How do we make sure that we create artificial intelligence and leverage the benefits of automation without necessarily displacing the entire workforce or large sections of the workforce? And we think about three different things that are very concerning to Microsoft. The first one is that we increasingly see that in the technology sector, people do not have the skills in order to leverage technology. How can we make sure we partner with companies, with governments, with our own customers to upskill the existing workforce? And increasingly, as technology will displace certain jobs, how do we make sure we reskill people that will lose their jobs so that they can seize opportunities that are emerging and can be part of a more knowledge-based type of society. We did a really interesting piece of research and found out that what will happen mostly is that most of the tasks within jobs will be automated. So 30% of tasks within a person's job are likely to be automated. How do we make sure that with that time, people can add more value to the jobs that they're currently doing, and therefore increase their income and their productivity? And the third thing that I'm increasingly concerned about, because I do have young children also, is how do we prepare children entering the primary system today for jobs that do not yet exist? And we know that about 65% of children entering primary education, like my children, will be in jobs that we cannot even anticipate. We partner very closely with LinkedIn, as many of you know, and one of the fastest growing positions on LinkedIn at the moment is drone operator. How do you teach somebody to operate a drone, and who should do it? We, in Microsoft Philanthropies, had tried to address some of these issues. And we have a very large program where we provide young people from very underserved communities with an opportunity to learn skills that we know are in demand. And every year, we have about 1.2 million young people that go through our programs. These are people with disabilities, people from very remote locations, ethnic minorities, and frankly, women, all across Southeast Asia. I always like to talk about one particular example because it's very close to my heart. One of the people that went through this program, one of the 33 million young people, is called Hai, and he is the son of fishermen in Da Nang, well, outside of Da Nang. He has cerebral palsy, so his communication is nonverbal. And when I met him, he was trying to convey to me, and we actually communicated with technology, that his parents didn't know what to do with him in a fisherman village outside of Da Nang, being nonverbal. So they sent him to a nonprofit in Da Nang called Reach that Microsoft happens to support. He's a brilliant coder. He got a degree or went through a training program where he learned programming, and he now works for one of Microsoft's partners in Vietnam. He's making, at age 27, 6 times of his entire family's income combined. So it's something that I truly take pride in. Another tough conversation is how do we make sure that AI and technology more broadly does not increase inequality even further? So we put together a program called AI for Good. And the purpose of this is to really bring the benefits of artificial intelligence to researchers, companies, nonprofits, working to address 3 critical society issues of our time: climate change and environmental sustainability, the improvement of people with disabilities, and humanitarian crises. This one is important for Asia Pacific. We have a program called AI for Earth. And basically what we're trying to do is create partnerships with organizations trying to promote biodiversity preservation, trying to address climate change, agriculture, and water management. And this is critical in this region because 100% of our ecosystems in Asia Pacific are under threat. So we've committed to a 5-year, $100 million investment, and we've created a whole bunch of programs that are actually really interesting and that are using technology in a way that truly helps monitor and preserve natural systems. This is my favorite one because I spend a lot of time at the Singapore Zoo with my 4-year-old twins, and we talk about elephants a lot. So this is my favorite project because it's called the Elephant Listening Project. And what we do is position IoT devices all across Borneo. And what the IoT devices are trying to do is distinguish between the calling of elephants and all the other noises in the forest. And trust me, they're very noisy places. You can hear insects, human voices, all sorts of sounds. But what AI is doing is trying to distinguish irregularities in the calling of elephants, because you can identify when elephants might be at risk. The signals from this solution are actually sent to the field to try to prevent poaching and illegal ivory trade. Finally, but certainly not least, there are 1 billion people with access needs around the world. Our commitment at Microsoft is to provide technology that empowers everyone. And therefore, we're really keen to partner with organizations that can help improve the lives of people with disabilities around the world. Let me show you what one of these solutions that we've promoted through this program looks like.
My research is how can we accurately identify the location of the damaged area, because immediately after the disaster, the government needs the damage map to carry out the effective rescue.
It happened to Bill Gates that he had the wrong video in one of our presentations, so it happens to me too. So I was going to show you a video about a solution that instead of showing it to you, I will demo. So we have an application called Seeing AI, and it's an application that basically enables people that are visually impaired to understand the world around them. What it means is that if you're blind or have low vision, you can go to a restaurant, and as they hand out the menu to you, you can actually read it out loud. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer that might want to come on stage, and I'm going to do a demo of what this application actually does. Any volunteers? Hopefully somebody that looks young. Thank you. So it's called Seeing AI. You can download it for free on your phone. And we can read text. Do you have anything? Maybe a piece of paper? Great. So if I'm visually impaired and I'm handed out a menu at a restaurant, or I'm in a work meeting and there are handouts, this application will read it out for you. It also recognizes documents, so it can read a full document out to you, but also people. So if I'm visually impaired and I'm in a meeting and I'm not really sure if people are really paying attention or they're half asleep, I could actually use this application to identify who I have around me. So I'm going to try it on Grace, and it'll tell me how to take a picture because
29-year-old woman with black hair looking happy.
Thank you. That's why I said it has to be someone that looks young. So this is all great, right? We're very excited about what technology can do for people with disabilities, for the environment. But what if we don't trust the way that technology is being developed? We've been in the news. All technology companies, including IBM, because people have fears, understandably, over privacy, security, and other issues. So for us, this has been a critical conversation that we have at Microsoft. And we learned this the hard way. The article that you can see on the screen was recent, and it identified that Microsoft technology had fundamental biases because it could accurately predict, it could use the facial recognition technology, could predict a white man's characteristics with 1% of error rate. But the error rate for darkened-skinned men was 12%. And the error rate for women was 35%. So we did not like that one bit. And I'm not the only one who actually, raised the voice and said, why are we producing and enabling, our customers and our partners to go to market with technologies that are fundamentally biased? And so we put in place a set of measures that basically tries to create a foundation of ethics that underpins every single solution that we develop at Microsoft. And yes, we would turn down sales if the solutions that our customers are asking us to develop do not comply with these ethical principles. In a nutshell, we have 6 principles, and using those principles, we review every single one of the solutions that we produce. The first one of the principles is accountability. People need to understand how our systems operate. It is no longer acceptable to have only data scientists working on systems that nobody else understands. And companies need to be held accountable for what our technology is doing to our consumers. And therefore, with accountability needs to come transparency. We need to be open about what our solutions are doing and how we're leveraging the data that our customers are providing us with. But they also need to be fair. Because as we think about artificial intelligence, making decisions on a person's health treatment, or whether or not somebody accesses credit. We need to ensure that the systems treat people fairly, and people in the similar situations are treated in the exact same way. In order to do that, you need to actually remove biases of the developers that are working on making those decisions. Reliability and safety are critical because in the age of unknown nefarious attacks and cybersecurity attacks, we need to make sure our solutions are stable even in the case of unknown circumstances. And they need to actually respect people's privacy. As we have increasingly more and more of our personal data being collected through technology, we need to make sure that our consumers and our customers know exactly how that data is going to be used. And all of our products, as Microsoft, are compliant with the General Data Protection Regulation from the European Union. And finally, and perhaps more importantly, they need to be inclusive. They need to, by design, include rather than exclude entire groups and populations. The example of the application that I demoed earlier, Seeing AI, is a great one because it was developed by somebody who is visually impaired himself. And if we want technology that will serve everyone, it needs to be developed by everyone. AI is increasingly thinking like human beings, and if we want to reflect the diversity in human thinking, we need to have diverse teams working on that technology. So we're pondering, and hopefully we'll have soon, a Hippocratic oath for coders at Microsoft. So just like doctors do, that they sign these Hippocratic oaths under the principle of doing no harm, we're looking at having every developer at Microsoft sign a Hippocratic oath of actually moving technology forward without leaving people behind. And to stay true to timeless values, to values that we as a company and that society as a whole is interested in preserving. These are my kids, the 4-year-old twins. And I truly believe that if we do that, if we create technology for everyone, that is done by everyone, we will have an opportunity to advance the future for everyone. And when we do, we will all prosper. Thank you.
And if you do have any questions for Diana after the session, then she'll be around here happy to answer any questions that you might have.
How do you ensure that in AI you are using a diverse data set, diversity of gender, background, income, all those things? How do you account for maybe human biases? It's a big question.
Great question. It's actually very topical right now, as you know, by the bias in our models. Like I said, right, we're using data, human-labeled data. So bias in the model, bias out the model, right? So you can't expect these models to be unbiased if you're training it on biased data, right? So if a human has a bias like around this is passive aggressive, this is not, that's going to come out the other side, right? So the ways that we get around it, there's a few kind of approaches to it, but I can speak kind of algorithmically from a data science perspective. We're now having to tackle that. So we do these thing called like blindless models where we can remove variables, right? So we'll do an analysis, we'll look at so gender, for example, is there a bias in the output of our data? So therefore I'll remove gender as a variable, right? So the great example that we talked about a bit is at Amazon last year, they had a HR scanning tool that went through and scanned CVs and downgraded female CVs quite dramatically, right? Yeah, it was a big issue, right? So what was happening was it was anything that was being mildly associated with females, right? So they removed female from this is a female candidate, they removed that data point, but there was data in those CVs that was associated with being a female, right? You go to a female-only college, you are a homemaker, you had big gaps in your resume, right? So that was another one. So those things are kind of implicit variables, and so we can remove that stuff, but it's very hard to remove all of that from the models. Another approach we're doing now is basically what we're running the models with the bias, measuring what the bias is, and then taking it out the other side at a high level. But that's kind of algorithmic maybe, but there's other approaches I think that across the industry.
I think it's really important that founders in particular are thinking about this up front and setting their values to their organization up front. Like there is, you know, and I see this a lot in medical AI, which I think is a really huge area for potential stuff in genetics. A lot of the stuff that's out there has, you know, large data sets have been obtained from 23andMe and genealogy.com, which is like mostly a North American market. It has shown, you know, demographic bias against people of color and Asian communities. So being aware of that up front and looking for it, trying to intelligently correct for that and having policies, I think, around it.
I think you can also counteract it with people. So that speaks to why it's so important to get females in STEM, why it's so important to have female engineers or engineers from different cultures and different backgrounds. When you think about bias in, bias out, the way to make sure you don't have bias in is to have a diverse collective that is actually creating these solutions.